Chris will answer any of your questions, I'm sure. Wendell Anderson, he and Teng Saechao, they're running for Yuba County Sheriff, both highly respectable in their departments, and we want to hear from everybody tonight. So, Chris, if you'll start off.
Sure. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's probably fine right there. My name is Chris Carlos. I'm running for district attorney in Sutter County. I decided to do it at the end of last year, basically because of all the problems that I was seeing with the DA's office. And so, just like everybody else, I decided to get involved and try and make a difference. And I really think we do need a difference. We definitely need a new change, a new direction, new leadership at the DA's office. I was born and raised here. I grew up in Marysville. I moved back as soon as I graduated from law school, and I've been here ever since. I have been in private practice for about 7 years. Before that, I was a prosecutor for about a little over 11 years, both in Butte County and here in Sutter County. So I was also a founding member of the Sutter County Gang Task Force when I was here as a prosecutor. And our first year, we sentenced Sutter County gang members to over 300 years in prison. So it can be done, it needs to be done, and hopefully June 5th we can make a change. I have some goals that I would like to see happen at the DA's office if I was elected. The main one would be changing the way cases are prosecuted from a horizontal to a vertical prosecution system. It's a much better system, and it is much more effective when it comes to prosecuting people. It's the system that is at the DA's office right now has been there for I don't know how long, and it really just needs to change. But I'll just, I guess, leave it up to a question and answer session at this point. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to be doing this. But
I'm sorry, we're going to, go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell the folks about yourselves, and then we're going to open it up to mics. And there's no Delphi meeting here, it's all open mics. So, Chris, if you're done, Wendell?
Okay, thank you, Bill. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you all for allowing me the opportunity to be here to speak to you tonight. I'm Lieutenant Wendell Anderson. I'm a lifelong Yuba County resident and 21-year veteran of the Yuba County Sheriff's Department. I'm currently the Chief of the Detective Bureau and the Commander of the agency SWAT team. In my current role, I'm a member of the command staff, which means that I'm involved in the major issues with the department, from personnel matters to budget issues. I've been involved in every single major case in Yuba County for the past several years. I'm proud to say that I'm a product of Yuba County. I made a decision a long time ago to raise my family here and to work to protect and serve the county that I grew up in. I've worked everything from the patrol beats in Olivers and Linda to a resident hill sergeant in the foothills. I know the landscape, the people, and the challenges of Yuba County firsthand. If elected, my priorities will be to fill vacant deputy positions, increase rural patrols, and lower the amount of mandatory overtime our deputies currently work. With increased staffing levels, my department would be able to give back to a much-needed community-oriented policing program. I'm honored to say I have the full support and endorsement of the Yuba County Sheriff Steve Durfer, all local Yuba County, Wheatland, and Marysville law enforcement associations, and the endorsement of 16 current county sheriffs in California. I am endorsed by Chief Whiteman from Wheatland Police Department, Chief Sachs from Marysville Police Department, Chief Rich Webb from Linda Fire, and all current county supervisors. I'm endorsed by Assemblyman James Gallagher and Senator Jim Nilsen, but more importantly to me, I'm supported and endorsed by the men and women that I work with, my peers, my subordinates, and my supervisors who I've worked side by side with throughout my entire law enforcement career. I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the Sutter Tea Party Patriots for hosting this event. Second, I want to thank the audience for being here tonight. My name is Teng Saechao. I'm running for Yuba County Sheriff. I was born in Laos. I spent about 5 years in refugee camps in Thailand. I came to America when I was about 15 years old. I moved to the Yuba Sutter area in 1989, and I became a U.S. citizen in 1991. I began my law enforcement career with Yuba County Sheriff's Office in 1991. I have been living in Primus Lake since 2013. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership. I have a bachelor and associate degree in criminal justice. I have been with Yuba County for over 26 years. I'm a pro-CCW, and I support the Second Amendment. I have worked as a supervisor, detective, field training officers, field training officer coordinator, SWAT, gang officers, community service officers, and correctional officers. I have seen a lot of things at Yuba County Sheriff's Office that needs to be changed. And that's why I'm running. And it's time for new leadership. It's time for change to better serve the citizens of Yuba County. If elected, I'm going to restructure, streamline the Sheriff's Office to promote effective allocation of resources and eliminate wasteful spending. I want to create a Citizen Advisory Council so that the citizens of Yuba County will have a voice in the Sheriff's Office, strengthen the trust between law enforcement and the citizens. I want to get back to community policing so we can work in partnership to find a long-term solution to issues such as homelessness, gangs, crimes, rising crimes, and illegal marijuana grows. I also want to form a Sheriff's Advisory Committee for fundraising so that the deputy can get better trainings so that we can assist the citizen better. We can create after-school programs so that our children can have a place to go to instead of have something to do, instead of joining the gangs and committing crimes. That money we can use also toward scholarship so we can send our children to college to better themselves. The possibility with the fund that we get from the fundraising is endless. I want to diversify the Sheriff's Office so that it will be reflective of the community that it serves and strengthen the trust and credibility of the Sheriff's Office. I want to create proactive units to pursue career criminal and patrol high crime areas. I also want to create a traffic unit to work in partnership with California High Patrol to address out-of-control traffic and adding additional manpower to the Sheriff's Office and equipment. I also want to increase the road patrol. By restructuring, streamlining, that's going to give us more deputies on the road. And I want to utilize the reserve deputy to augment the full-time deputy. I want to bring back star volunteers so that they can assist with patrol during vacation checks and other details. I also want to incorporate new equipment such as the Enduro motorcycle so we can better patrol the farm area, have better access in the farm area. Now, those are just some of the things I want to change. My campaign slogan is new leadership, new vision, and integrity. There's a saying, if you keep doing this, if you keep doing what you're doing, you will always where you be at. And also, the definition of insanity is you're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So it's time for a new leadership. It's time for a new vision. It's time we restore integrity and trust. I will be honored to have you vote on June 5th. Together, we can and we will win this race together, and we will make the change and our community safer. And I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank all three of you guys. So let's open up the mics. Any questions? Get up and ask them. We have a Sutter County DA and Yuba County Sheriff, so whoever it's addressed to,
This is addressed to Chris. I'm a Sutter County resident, and I don't believe in hit pieces, but something came out today, so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if it's okay. First, have you always been a Democrat and you just became a Republican?
No, I'm not a registered Democrat or Republican at the
So,
current time.
so this is wrong then. Thank you, I appreciate that answer. I also need to know if you're in favor of sanctuary cities.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not. I mean, I find it funny because my opponent is really just trying to make everybody believe that, but no.
I appreciate your answers because that helped me on this because I haven't decided who I'm voting for yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is for the DA, trying to become DA. You did say about the sanctuary cities, but do you realize that's a federal law? So if you become DA, aren't you obligated by federal law to uphold the sanctuary city? If the Sutter County decides to opt out of what the state capitol did and fight them, are you willing, if you became elected, to go ahead and uphold what the supervisors and the citizens of Sutter County say?
Yes, to a certain extent. And a lot of the issues that we're talking about as far as sanctuary cities go, they don't really have anything to do with the DA's office necessarily. It's more of a law enforcement situation. So basically right now, law enforcement is not allowed to call ICE and notify them that they might be able to pick somebody up. So that really is not a function of the DA's office in general. Does that answer your question? I mean, I can't.
Well, it doesn't, because you being the DA, you're gonna have to enforce what the supervisors put in place. If the supervisors decide to opt out of what the state has said to say,
Right.
for sanctuary cities, but it's federal law.
It is federal law.
Because if you read the Constitution, you have to go by federal law first. And also, that's where you have to go ahead and make sure you do federal law.
It would still be something that's not actually a job or a function of the DA's office. It's really a law enforcement issue, but I mean, I wouldn't have a problem seeing, this is my opponent trying to twist some of the things that I've said previously around. So I'm against laws that are going to allow dangerous criminals to remain in Sutter County if they don't have a legal right to be here in Sutter County. So, but it's not the DA's job to enforce immigration laws. Does that make sense? It really doesn't have anything to do with the DA's office in general.
Okay?
Good evening. Glad to see you guys here. And I think Amanda was just, I think she's hiding out. That's my opinion on that. I'd like to ask Teng, you said that you're going to streamline things in the sheriff's department and stop the waste, okay? We're tired of hearing all the time that we can't make it, and we need more money, okay? In the private sector, you know what we do? We make it. And that's just the bottom line. We got to make it. So, and we can't go out and beg for money. So I'm a little irritated about that, always asking for more. So I'm very interested in your statement on streamlining. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, thank you. Once I take office, I'm going to look at every positions. If I can do away with that position, I will do away with that positions. For example, certain upper managed position, I'm going to look at it carefully. If I can trade that in for a couple more deputies, I'm gonna do that. If certain procedures, I feel that I look at it without jeopardizing the safety of the citizens of Yuba County, I will make that change. And that's what I meant by restructuring and streamlining it. And I'm gonna be looking at a couple positions that I can do that. So that's what I meant. And also with the fundraising, the Sheriff Advisory Committee, that's gonna bring us in some more additional fundraising money that we can provide better training to the deputies. I hope that's answered your questions.
Thank you. This is for the DA. I wanted to give you a little more opportunity to expand on your concept of the vertical prosecution, because when you first spoke about that, I was completely unaware of the current structure and how segregated and mixed up it is. And it just makes so much sense the way you want to structure it. And so I just wanted to give you a little more opportunity to elaborate on that.
Sure, and it's something that my opponent is totally against. But vertical means that when a case goes into the DA's office, it goes to one attorney, and that one attorney has that case the entire time, from start to finish. Right now, the way it works is an attorney will review the case when it comes in, a different attorney will go to court and try and resolve the case, another attorney will do the preliminary hearing, or even another attorney will do a jury trial or something to that effect. So contrary to what my opponent says about it being impossible, it's actually much more efficient to do it how I would propose to do it. It's much more efficient, it works much better with law enforcement, and it works much better for the victims of the crimes. So that's what I would propose immediately if I was elected.
I'd like to start out with Mr. Carlos because of the judicial aspect of it, and then if the two sheriff's candidates could add to it from the enforcement level. And just a brief, I won't go on forever. As a teacher for 26 years, teaching in Yuba County, and being a resident of Sutter County, in the mid-'80s is when we began to have gang problems. And that's when parents had to go to their schools and walk inside and pick up their children to keep them from being attacked by gang members. And a great deal of that had to do with the fact that children, and that's what they were, from the LA area, from Southern California, were shipped up to our area to be in group homes rather than going into state facilities. And that's when the gangs started. We have more of a gang problem now. On the judicial end, what can we do? And then on the enforcement end, what can we do to reduce this problem that we have, mostly for our children, but for everybody else?
Well, I mean, as far as from the prosecution side of it, you just basically need to have a good working relationship with law enforcement. You need to get out there and work the cases, I mean, basically. And that's another way that the vertical prosecution role model is much better. So if one prosecutor does nothing but gang cases, that prosecutor is going to know everything there is to know about the local gangs, the members, the officers that are trying to investigate those types of crimes as well. So I don't know that the DA's office necessarily has any way to fix the problems before they start, but we can definitely prosecute the people when they do get caught.
So my opinion on the gang, prevention is a big part, I think, that we're lacking in our society, and that's getting to the kids before they get into high school, before they get into junior high school. getting to them when in their grade school, educating them on the dangers of gangs and drugs, and, dedicating resources to educating those young children. Groups like the YMCA, Boy Scouts of America, all of those things are great things that, are traditionally with our culture that I think we've lost. So we need to get back to that. We need to give young people things to do other than joining gangs. After school programs, YMCA I mentioned is a great thing. I've actually been talking, shame on me, I didn't know we had a YMCA in Olivehurst and I grew up there. So, just educating and promoting things like that, promoting things over gangs, educating, and then, when we have to get to the part where we're making arrests for gangs, I think we're too late. The rehabilitation is difficult for the gang life once they're fully vested in the gang life. So prevention, education, ultimately there's prosecution and rehabilitation. You have to try everything. But I think the key is starting with education and prevention with the younger people.
That's a great question. That's why I say we need to get back to community policing. We need to get involved. We need to get the community involved. That's why I'm talking about creating after school activities so that the children get involved in that. They have something to do. So besides joining the gang, besides committing crimes, that's very important. We need to take an active role in that, so we can steer them away from the gang life, and that's the most important thing. Without that, once they get involved in the gang, it's really hard to get them out.
What about getting into the group homes and doing intervention there? Because that's where many of those gang members who would otherwise be in a type of jail are allowed to be part of the community by living in some of the group homes. And I know a lot of those group homes are in Yuba County.
That's right. There's two prongs to that. One is, like I said, we need to get involved. That's why the after school project or activity that they can get involved besides hanging out with the gang members. And the other prong is the proactivity. So under my leadership, I'm going to have that proactivity unit that's going to hit them. That's going to go after the gangbanger. And while the other officer, the other group is going to try to steer them away from it, it's going to create an after school activity for them to join, for them to get involved in, and that's how you can keep them away from the gang members. So, and then the other part is going to be get with the DA's office, make sure that they prosecute the gang members for every crime that they commit out there in the county, and that's how we can protect our children from getting involved in that.
I can't speak for Sutter County, but with the Yuba County District Attorney's Office, they have a great record of prosecuting gang cases, and our gang unit does a great job of enforcing the gang laws, being aggressive with those, to deter future crimes from happening. But the key is getting educating those younger people. Their group homes, by the time they get in their group homes, they're already in the gang life, so it's too late. I mean, we really need to focus on prevention, and I think if we spend as much money on teaching our kids, maybe educating some parents as we did on our welfare system, we can make a change. So it's dedicating time, resources to the parents that are teaching their kids and preventing those kids from getting into the gangs.
And hopefully monitoring those that are already a problem. And I know other people are waiting, but my other question is about sex trafficking. I know that Highway 99 and one of our famous little hotels along 99, they are main central areas. And it's right next to the Sutter County Office of Education. And I have sat outside and watched the prostitutes be dropped off, go in, and come back when I was waiting for meetings. What can we do on local legislation, local ways in both counties to monitor, reduce, and severely punish the ones that are abusing these young women, young men, all of them? That's really important.
Did it address to all three of us? Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Well, obviously, having a focused DA's office can do a lot. But I think as far as going after crimes like you're talking about really would involve more of a proactive approach by law enforcement. And I'm all for working with law enforcement hand in hand. That's one of the things that I really want to try and change, is having good communication with law enforcement. That's one of the things I hear a lot, is that there is no communication between the DA's office and law enforcement.
Well, that's why, again, going back to the proactive unit, we need that unit to actively pursue those individuals that exploit our children. That's why it's so important. Under my leadership, we will have that unit, and that unit will actively pursue those individuals that exploit it. And we will work closely with the DA's office, make sure that the individual that's arrested is prosecuted to the fullest extent under the law.
So, yeah, just to touch on that, we actually do, from time to time when we're able to, we do stings for prostitution. I don't know if you're talking about prostitution or trafficking of juveniles, because they're two distinct, separate things. So, we do already have local ordinances and laws in place for pandering, for prostitution. They don't have a lot of bite to them, to be honest with you, and that's what the legislation in California has done, to the law enforcement officers. But we actively, aggressively work with our district attorney's office now. Any case that has any underlyings of the sex trafficking with juveniles, we have a protocol in place with child welfare, with the DA's office, with our office, to address those issues immediately and quickly. So there are good protocols in place for the trafficking of the young children, or the juveniles. As far as the prostitution and whatnot, it's just being aggressive. We need to change the culture. We need to be more aggressive with our policing, which comes down to our resources. We need, to free up our deputies to go out and be proactive and be aggressive and take back our communities.
Good evening.
Hey.
I have a hard time putting my thoughts to a microphone, so you have to excuse me.
Me too.
With the advent of the abuse of SWAT teams to a point where the animal shelters pretty soon will have their own SWAT teams and armored vehicles, the no-knock raids, wrong addresses, killing civilians and their pets, sending somebody to prison because they don't know what's going on and trying to defend themselves, it's gotten to a ridiculous point where such minuscule offenses are being used excuse for SWAT teams. Is there anything that you plan that you can curtail this a little bit and get it more into perspective and try to get away from this police state mentality? This is for all three of you gentlemen.
I'll go first. So being the commander of the SWAT team, we actually utilize a matrix system for our SWAT deployments. I think I've been in SWAT most of my career, and I don't recall ever doing a no-knock warrant. So, I don't know if you're generalizing a little bit, I think. We usually, in Yuba County, we'll have maybe 15 SWAT call-outs a year. And when I say call-outs, that means high-risk search warrants, hostage situation, barricaded subjects, whatever it may be. So I don't think, and we're aware of that, the police state that you talk about, and we try to strictly adhere to our matrix, and it's a numbering system, and if somebody has a criminal background, if they have criminal history, it's a point system. So if they meet the point requirements, the SWAT commander, which is me, I look at the matrix and make a determination based on the matrix if it's safe for just a general, a deputy to go serve the warrant, or if SWAT is needed. So we try to use SWAT sparingly, and I believe we do a pretty good job of it.
That's good to hear.
That's why it's important for us to get back to community policing, so that we can get the citizens involved in the sheriff's office. Um, and so we can build that trust, so we can break down that barrier, us versus them, so we can solve issues together, so it won't lead to that SWAT call out. If it leads that SWAT call out, if you have that trust, if you build up that trust with the citizens, with the community, chance of resolving that standoff is going to be much higher than having to resort to SWAT entering the building. And that's why it's so important. That's why I keep going back to, we got to go back to the, community policing, where to get, the officer has to get to know the people that's in his beat in the county. Instead of, I have a call the other day, the gentleman that called me, he didn't give me his name, but he called me the other day asking about just that issue right there. We are getting to a point that we're driving, he used the word a slick police patrol unit. We're getting to a point that we're driving down the road without stopping, talking to citizens. The only time citizen has contact with the deputy or officer is when they're either one, a victim of crime, a suspect, or a victim or witness. It shouldn't be that way. It should be that a citizen could just walk up to the officers, shake their hand, her hand, and just stand there and talk. Normal people. That's the kind of relationship that I want to build under my leadership. That's what kind of relationship I want in Yuba County.
I just like to back up what Wendell said a little bit. I think the focus when it comes to SWAT is going to be officer safety, and if there's an issue with officer safety, sufficient that they need to call in SWAT, I don't have a problem with it. But as Wendell said, I think that just 15 times a year, that's not too bad for an entire county.
Well, I understand SWAT being edgy because with the police officers throughout the whole United States having bullseyes on them and the assassinations going on, it's understandable, but it just seems to me from everything I'm reading, everything's getting out of control in a lot of parts of the country. And some of the stuff I've seen on YouTube, it's almost to a point where some police officers have a mob mentality. I mean, one incident where a gentleman stole a horse and 2 police officers had him on the ground beating the hell out of him. A patrol car pulls up, the guy gets out and it's in hand, and he goes over and starts beating the hell out of him too. So it's just, it's just.
Now, this is for the sheriff's candidates. Can you tell me the difference between a law enforcement officer and a peace officer? Start with Teng.
Law enforcement officers, it's, peace officer, law enforcement officer. To me, as peace officer, you're out there to keep the peace, and I don't really know exactly what you're asking, but as a deputy sheriff, as law enforcement officer, I'm out there to solve the issues out there in the community, to work with the community, to resolve different issues that we faces out there in the community, enforcing the laws, make sure that everybody's received the same protections. Again, that's my understanding, and I'm sorry I don't know what you. I hope that answers your questions.
I'll take a shot. I think to be honest with you, they're used interchangeably. I mean, some people call them peace officers, but I don't know if you're getting at, the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law, if that's what you're talking about, or if you're talking about, being able to control people peacefully.
Well, I just want to see if you guys ever thought of the differences. So I don't want to give you too much explanation. I want to see what's on your mind, So you have peace officer, law enforcement officer. So.
Well, the best thing that I could say that is, so the peace officer would, interpret and work under the spirit of the law. In the law enforcement officers enforcing laws in black and white, it's the spirit, it's the letter of the law, and that's how they do their job. Am I on the right track? Because we really do use them interchangeably.
Right, okay. Well, I like both of those answers. So which is going to be better for the people? A peace officer or a law enforcement officer?
I've always thought that the spirit of law is the way that we need to police the land. Is that our forefathers, they had certain things in mind when they established the Constitution, and also with legislation. And sometimes the laws are ambiguous and and people use them to their advantage when they can, if that makes sense. So I think the spirit of the law is always preferable.
What do you think, Teng?
Well, I have always, since I've been with Yuba County Sheriff's Office, over 26 years, I have always enforced the laws, the spirit of the law. I have, as a matter of fact, the other day when I was having a meet and greet, a guy walking down the street, a gentleman walking down the street, we have many encounters, some not so good, but he still have that respect. He said, if I can vote, I would vote for you. I know that his word is that you have tased me, but you know what, you were in the right, I was in the wrong. And he thanked me for doing my job and for treating him with fairness. So that's what I always, that's my philosophy when I enforce the law.
And that's what you will try to put down through your rank and file.
Absolutely.
Yes. Now, this is another follow-up question, just for Teng. Not being born in the USA, can you tell us why you love the United States? I'm assuming that you love the United States of America. Can you tell us why?
Absolutely. I think America is the greatest country. We have our problem, we have our issues, but it's still the greatest country. When I was in Thailand, when I was in a refugee camp, I was owing up to see a lot of things. I had the opportunity to see corruptions and all that. And when I got here and I started studying and I want to help people, my first name Teng, it actually means help in my language. So, and I get to start helping people, translating in court, interpreting in court. Matter of fact, I resigned from my interpreting position, independent contractor with Language Alliance Services, so I can focus on my campaign, so I can get elected, so I can make the changes at the Sheriff's Office, so that we can change the way we police the community, so that we can make it safer. And again, going back, we have to get back to the community policing. We have to get the community involved so that we can break down that barrier. And like I said, this country has given me so much, and I want to give it back. And that's why I am sticking my neck out there. I'm running for sheriff, so I can make that change, so I can give back to the community.
Wendell, could we hear your answer to that question also, please?
Well, yeah. So, why do I love America? Is the question is because it provides equal opportunities for everybody. I mean, if you want to come to this country and you want to work and you want to work hard, and you can make a life for yourself. You know, our government is a republic, and people have a right to vote. You said it earlier, Bill, in your opening statement, I'm sorry, it wasn't Bill, but when you talked about, the South American countries, and, we have a say. We are able to work to better ourselves. We're able to vote. It's a democracy to make it a better land for ourselves.
Thank you for showing up. It takes a lot of guts to run for public office. So thank you to be in a fishbowl and constantly be pecked at. Mr. Carlos, I would like to know if you will be a working DA. Currently, DA Hopper, she campaigned on the fact that she was going to be a prosecuting DA, that she was going to be in the courtroom. Can you tell me how many cases she has tried?
As far as I know, she hasn't done a trial since she became DA.
Not a single trial?
No.
Zero?
As far as I don't know the last time she actually did a jury trial, but I'm guessing it's probably been 7, 8 years at least.
Okay. At one of the earlier forums, the statistic was pointed out that under DA Hopper, the budget has increased to $1.7 million than the budget, that of Yuba County, with DA Pat McGrath, who has no drama, who goes to work every day and does his job. Haven't seen him on the front page of the paper for anything other than trying crimes, which I appreciate.
No, I agree, and I frankly think the Yuba County DA's office does a better job than the current Sutter County DA's office on half the budget.
How can you cut costs in the DA office?
That's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. I don't necessarily think that everybody needs a car to take to and from work. I don't know. These guys might know better than me, but I don't know the last time a DA investigator actually got called out to a crime scene in the middle of the night, which is supposedly the reason why they all have to have their own cars. But I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I would definitely sit down and try. I would be all in favor of giving up the county car. I don't need it. That's for sure.
One last question. As a taxpayer in Sutter County, we're currently getting hosed all over the place. There are very few departments that are running as they should. Right now we have a supervisor of District 4 that has had north of 20 women and girls come out against him, accusing him of inappropriate activity. Current DA Hopper says that she has a conflict of interest looking at his case. Would you have a problem with that?
I wouldn't have a conflict of interest,
Thank you.
in my opinion.
And finally, Aaron Easton. His wife was found deceased. It'll be 3 years in August. That was in District 5, my district in Sutter County. Would you have a problem looking at that case and maybe looking towards an expedient solution?
No, absolutely not.
Thank you.
Isn't this much more fun than having a moderator hand-pick questions off index cards? You get to hear our inflections and our opinions. So I have a question. I meant to get in here and give Chris Carlos a question after the sheriff candidates were given one, but my question right now is for the DA candidate, Chris Carlos. So I'm aware of a couple cases where the current DA was very critical of CCW holders in cases that came before her. Would you have a contrasting perspective if cases came before you with regard to CCWs exercising their rights to protect themselves?
I would probably have a much different opinion than my opponent, Ms. Hopper. I think she's wrongfully prosecuted a number of people for defending themselves with a firearm. And I know there's been at least 2 not guilty verdicts. These people had to take their case all the way to a jury trial. And, you know, it's some cases shouldn't be prosecuted. That's where I think her lack of experience is really a big problem.
Good evening, gentlemen. My question is, actually it's a dual question for all 3 of you. How do you feel about neighborhood watch groups? And how, if at all, would you cooperate with them? Very simple.
I would have a complete open door policy that anybody in Sutter County, if they wanted to come to their DA's office and talk about concerns in their own neighborhood, I'm all for it.
So just to reflect on that, yeah, absolutely 100% for neighborhood watch groups. I support them. I would encourage them. And with my department, we would actively go out and seek and try to create them.
100% for neighborhood watch, and that's why, again, going back to, I keep saying we need to get back to community policing. That's why it's important to me, it's important to the citizens of Yuba County, and I would encourage them. I would provide any and all resources that I have available, and with the Sheriff's Advisory Committee, with the fundraising, we can provide money as well to help them out. So that's why, and again, going back to community policing, we need to get the community involved, and that's how we're going to protect our community and our loved ones.
Thank you, each one of you, and I hope that within the course of your administration, whichever it may be, you would go out and meet with neighborhood watch groups because it's fantastic. Thank you all.
Thank you.
ma'am.
Good evening, and my questions are for the Lieutenant Anderson and Deputy Saechao. I've been a public servant for approximately 23 years in Yuba County, and if elected, we'll start with Teng. How do you feel about interoperability with other agencies, non-law enforcement, such as fire or EMS?
Once I take office, I'm gonna, again, like I said, with my sheriff, the Citizen Advisory Committee, want to get different people from different group of individuals from different part of the town. We want to sit down. We're going to see what can we do to better serve our citizens. If that means getting involved with the bringing the personnel, get more involved. I want to get more involved with the agencies such as the fire departments and any other agency out there that wants to get involved with the sheriff's office. I encourage that. My door is going to be open. We're going to be sitting down together to see what we can do to better serve the citizens of Yuba County. It's not my administration is not going to be self-serving. It's going to be what's good for the citizens of Yuba County.
Yeah, absolutely. I already do that. So it was a part of a merger with our SWAT teams from Yuba County with Yuba City, and that incorporated tactical medics from Linda Fire and from Yuba City Fire. And Chief, I've already talked to you. I look forward to working with you. And anything that we can do to benefit our communities, whether it be with resources, training, absolutely. I agree that we need to all work together. It's for the benefit of our community and our citizens.
Okay, I wasn't aware that Linda had medics, but how long have you been a lieutenant at the Sheriff's Department?
Over 2 years.
Over 2 years?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Because I see a division not only between law enforcement and some fire agencies in the Yuba County foothills, but also division between fire departments, valley versus hills. My question, and you may or may not be aware of this, there's valley agencies that have rescue equipment, watercraft to get on the Feather or the Yuba River for whoever, they're not always Yuba County residents, but for rescue operations. We have the Yuba River in our area and Lake Englebright. I have requested assistance from the Yuba County Sheriff, knowing that between a Valley agency and a Sutter County agency, that Yuba County has provided them with such equipment. Would that, if either one of you, whichever one's elected, are you opposed to maybe dividing up some of that equipment? Because I've asked, and I've been flat out told no.
Absolutely. The county of Yuba owns that property, so the county of Yuba residents should benefit from that property. I know you're specifically, I think we had talked about a jet ski that you were requesting. Absolutely. If that jet ski is needed and it will help rescue somebody or save someone's life, absolutely, it'll be at your disposal.
Well, it just doesn't make sense to order that agency from the Valley, which would take them an easy 30 to 40 minutes to get into my jurisdiction when I'm 10 minutes away to saving a life. And this is very personal to me because a few years ago, I experienced, not only from the Yuba County Sheriff, but also the State Dispatch Center, where there was a call for help on the Yuba River in my jurisdiction. Not only were we not dispatched, But when we finally self-dispatched, what it boils down to is a man lost his life. He wasn't given the opportunity, and all Yuba County sheriffs can say, you couldn't have saved him anyway. Well, last I looked, none of us have nail holes in our hands or feet. So I'm highly concerned with that. I know you, you know me not very well, but we've worked together, and as well with Teng. I kind of see that same thing going on. You're in a position as a lieutenant to change that now. Whether you're elected or not, you're a lieutenant right now. You have some sort of authority.
Sure. So one of my answers is I just, I coordinated a training with your department just recently, and it was canceled. I don't know why. But so the relationship, it absolutely, I'll extend an olive branch to work with anybody within the county, but it has to be reciprocal, and you have to be able to work together. And yeah, absolutely. I'm very open to collaborative efforts with everyone, and I think that's just by looking at the endorsements that I have. It shows. I have endorsements from firemen. I have endorsements from cops all over the county, and I can work with anybody.
Okay, well, I hope that's true, because right now you're lieutenant, so that can happen now, not after the elections. And I'm the one who stopped that training, because I'm not going to have my department used as any type of stepping stone in any type of election. So, if the training is offered now, why wasn't it offered before? Again, I don't know if you're in charge of that training or not.
I can answer that for you. I wasn't going to be at the training. I was offering that for the benefit of Yuba County residents, for the benefit of your people who requested that training be set up, and I set it up, but I wasn't going to have any part in it. So it wasn't an election ploy. It was to help at the request of your people.
Okay.
Well, if, once I take office, my office will have no segregation. And again, part of that restructuring, streamlining, I'm gonna look at it, see where the equipment is needed, and if it's gonna be beneficial to have that equipment at a certain fire station or a certain area strategically, and that equipment will be there. And it's, my administration, I'm not gonna tolerate this segregation, so this good old boys club, I'm not gonna tolerate that.
And that's exactly what I've seen in the last 15 years of being on the agency that I'm on. And again, seeing you as lieutenants, I'm assuming you must have been a sergeant prior to that. Have you ever been involved in the technical rescue or any of that?
I oversaw it for about a month, but no,
okay.
I've always been on the SWAT side and the marijuana side.
Okay. The other questions I have is there's a lot of hearsay going on out there and rumors and stuff, and I've sent you messages to your Facebook, your political Facebook, and I haven't gotten a reply yet. I don't know. We're a small county. We have a lot of small rural towns. So I don't understand why it seems to be some big-time politics involved. Why do people need to steal signs, take down signs? And I'm not saying that you're doing them. I'm not here accusing you at all, but it's obviously maybe supporters.
I can't tell you how many signs that I've had stolen, how many signs I've had taken down and defaced. And it's part of the game, and yeah, the one message that I did see that you sent to me was accusatory, and it wasn't worth responding to.
Actually, what I said was whether you know it or not, it's a reflection.
No, I understand,
that's what I
but
said.
it was also,
So it
was
wasn't
fairly
accusatory. So there's other, and again, these are rumors, so which
Well, I can tell you that I have never touched a political sign of my opponent, nor have anybody on my campaign committee, to my knowledge, touched a sign of my opponent, and it's not condoned, it's illegal, and we went over that from the very beginning. I get permission to put a sign up everywhere I put a sign up, and I wouldn't dream of touching my opponent's sign. I hope that answers your question.
No, it does, and it's in a public setting, so this is where I come to get my answers. That's why I'm here.
Sure.
So the other question I have, do you feel at any time that Deputy Saechao has ever pointed a weapon at you?
Pointed a weapon at me?
Correct.
Absolutely not. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
No, I
Okay.
would hope not.
That's just another rumor that's out there, so I'm in a public setting, so that's why I'm asking.
I guess
I
probably
didn't-
we were on SWAT together, so we may have pointed weapons at each other on accident, but not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, that clears that right up. So that's about all I have for right now.
Thank you, now that we dispelled all those rumors.
I think I forgot my question. Now, I have another question for Chris Carlos. So having a close family member, having been represented by a victim witness advocate, I have a real concern with what I've learned recently of how that division was restructured and put under the control of the DA's office. To me, if I were going through that process today, I would strongly object to the position that presents. And do you feel that that would compromise the integrity of those advocates? And what is your vision on that? How do you view how that is structured, and would you change it?
I would try to change it. I think it's a conflict of interest for the DA's office to have victim witness as part of the DA's office. And they do great work. There's no question about it. But I think there's a prosecution team, and the individual prosecutor is personally responsible for knowing everything that is said or communicated with victims or witnesses. And when you have people who are advocates for the victims and witnesses communicating with those people, there's too many areas that can be gray, and the one that's responsible for all of that is the individual prosecutor. So I would definitely try and move that to the probation department. I think that's where it should be.
This question, first of all, Chris, when you're in court and the word shall is used, can you explain what that means?
Must. Must.
Must.
Must.
Not maybe?
Not maybe.
Okay, thank you. So I want to clarify, too, that the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, not federal law. Okay. So our Second Amendment, it says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So in light of that, and we got Gavin Newsom running for governor, and he's bragging on TV all the time about his gun control program. And, you know, I've talked to friends, they said, well, you know, man, I'm worried about Gavin Newsom, you know, and his stance. And I say, well, we don't have to comply with Gavin Newsom. He has to comply with us. You know, we hold the people's power with the Second Amendment. So my question to the sheriff's deputies first, and then to you, is if we get that tyrant in office that wants to try and strip our right to keep and bear arms, how will you react?
Well, as an elected official of Yuba County, my first duty is gonna be for the citizens of Yuba County. I'll do what's right for the Yuba County residents. That's my duty.
So I think what you're talking about, it would be tantamount to civil war. If, you know, the state legislation tried to take the California, you know, the citizens of California's guns away, citizens of Yuba County, I think it would start another civil war, revolution, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, again, I'm sworn to defend the citizens of Yuba County. It's the last thing that we would ever want to see happen. But, I mean, through legislation, that's why we have to vote. That's why we have to have a voice. That's why we need to work hard here locally to try to change things. Because I wouldn't want to give up my guns. I wouldn't give up my guns.
I saw the commercial you're talking about, and I actually don't know what Gavin Newsom is referring to when he's talking about gun control, but I'm all for the Second Amendment. I mean, I think everybody in Sutter County is pretty much for the Second Amendment. And that's right, Yuba County as well.
Nobody else is coming up, so I'll rush up again. You gave very good answers to those questions because the purpose of civil government is to protect our God-given rights. So it is your job to work on our behalf and to protect our rights. That's your primary function. So kudos, you did good. Question for the sheriff candidates. Have you thought about if you are going to work cooperatively with your counterpart in Sutter County, and what would that look like? You know, do you have a plan? How would you engage with your counterpart in Sutter County?
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously it depends on who's elected as a sheriff, but I have relationships with all three of the candidates. With Barnes, especially, I've worked with Barnes for over 20 years, and we have a great working relationship. We've worked on the SWAT team together for years. You know, we worked in investigations for years, and Mr. Howe, the same thing. I worked with him at Marysville Police Department when he was there. We have to work together. I mean, we have to be able to work with our counterparts here. I do it now with Yuba City. I do it with Marysville, and, you know, the same thing with Sutter County. We're a small area. Issues like homelessness, it's going to take us all, everybody in the county, not just the sheriff's departments and the police departments, but we have to have that collaboration. We have to be able to work together. You know, school safety is a big thing, and if something were to happen, heaven forbid, you know, in one of our heavily populated areas, it's going to be all of us responding. It's not going to be just one agency. So yeah, absolutely, I'll work with them just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to work together. It doesn't matter if you are in law enforcement, you're in private sector, you're citizens. We all have a duty to work together. And I have no problem working with any other agencies, locally or state. I have worked with state, federal agency throughout my career. I have received many letters of appreciation from state, federal agency for my cooperation, for my work with them. There's no question about it. It's, you know, we have to work together, and it's just across the river. You know, I mean, everything happened in Sutter County, happened in Yuba County, vice versa.
We deal with the same people as Sutter County and Yuba County. It's just a river that divides us, so.
So you guys do feel like you have a dog in the fight in the county across the river?
Absolutely.
Okay, just making a comment, sorry.
I have a divisional question. How do you determine what property is the jurisdiction of the county or the city? And it's kind of catchy. Our front street, which is Honor Oak Lane, is city. The street directly behind our house, which is our back street, is Stephen Way, and that's county. You call one and they say, no, that belongs to the other. You call the other and say, no, that's the one. I have found a remedy. I called 911 and let them handle it. But seriously, how do you decide in this case, who's responsible?
Well, It does, when you call 911, of course, we're gonna respond. Once we get the situation neutralized or under control, then we'll determine which jurisdiction it is. And regarding to jurisdiction, that's something that it's not gonna be up to us. It's the annexations, it's the Board of Supervisors. They make that decision, they make that dividing line or whatever you wanna call it. But when you call 911, you will get the officer there. And then once we get everything under control, excuse me, once we get everything under control, then we'll decide who's going to be investigating that call. So I hope that answers your questions.
So the actual system that we use in our dispatch center, when we receive a call, it gives us the location, and there's actually the lines are already drawn for our dispatchers. So they know whether the call is in our jurisdiction or if it's in the city jurisdiction, and then they dispatch accordingly. Now, if it's a 911 emergency, you're gonna get deputies, officers. If there's a question over jurisdiction, they'll figure it out later. But for the most part, when we get a call, we know the jurisdiction that the crime's occurring in.
The question of jurisdiction is the Honor Oak subdivision, or was originally county property. The police had nothing to do with it. Since they are now city, we're still divided. It's like the railroad runs through the middle of the house. In the front, we're covered by the police, but in the back, we're covered by the county.
You're in Sutter County, ma'am?
Yes.
I can't speak on Sutter County's jurisdictional lines. I know that our dispatch center, I can actually look at a map. It's like a pin drawn. If we get a call within a certain square, it's ours. And if it's in another square, it's someone else's. But I can't speak as to Sutter County's, I'm not sure.
Mr. Carlos? You're a tiny island. We are.
I don't know.
We don't either.
Yeah. I know it's on the ballot coming up.
We have something similar in Wheatland. There's a small island in Wheatland that we respond to that, it's actually in the city limits of Wheatland, but it's our jurisdiction, and we just respond accordingly. But that's where, the computer database has that already, it's already entered into our system.
Yeah, again, sometimes sometimes you get a call, non-priority call, and sometimes we do cross that line. And in Sutter County, I know a little bit that Sutter County, they have a certain pocket in the county that belongs to the county, and I mean, it's just the way they annex the city annexes the county. That's something that's beyond law enforcement control. We just have to do the best we can, and like I said, if you get 911 call, we will be there. And once we sort it out, once we get the situation under control, then we'll figure out whose jurisdiction. And sometime, we get to a cold call. Once we figure that, this is the PD, then we'll link that over to the PD. So you're still gonna get that service.
I thank each one of you.
Thank you.
I had a follow-up on jurisdiction. It's very easy if there is a chase to go from one county to the other. What is your scenario for how to handle that? No matter which direction they're going across the bridge or what they're doing, how would you work together to be able to capture someone who is on a chase running across the bridge?
Sure. So that's actually a scenario that plays out pretty regularly, and we deal with that on a regular basis. And we have policy in place for vehicle pursuits. You're talking about vehicle pursuits. So if one of our county sheriff's department initiates a pursuit out in the county, it'll go into Marysville's jurisdiction and maybe into Sutter County's jurisdiction. So we ask for help from those agencies. They know the streets better, they know the areas better, so it makes sense for them to take the pursuit over when they can. And if there's enough units from that agency to take over the pursuit, we'll relinquish the pursuit to them, and vice versa. So we do it the same both ways. If it's a matter of resources, if they don't have enough people on duty, we will actively participate in the suit, but they'll take the primary role if it's in their agency.
Yeah, again, the policy is in place for that. Once we get in a vehicle pursuit, if it's heading toward, let's say, Sutter County or heading south toward Placer County, our dispatch been trained to notify the agency before we get there, whatever resource that we need, such as setting up spike strip, all that stuff, and coordinate with the California Highway Patrol for Air Support Unit. The policy's in place for that. We're out there to help each other. Again, this going back to working closely with other local agency and state agency, so that we can get the job done, get it done safely.
So who arrests and who prosecutes when it's by county?
It's, well, the original crime, the original offense could be the initiating agency. It's going to be, we're going to be filed with that agency, and whatever the crime is committed in the other jurisdictions can be filed in that agency. And a lot of it is going to be dependent on the district attorney's office. If they're going to look at the case, if they can consolidate the case, and they will consolidate the case. But charging the offense-wise, and that's how it's done.
And it'll depend on, you may have a more serious offense that occurs in one area. You know, if they have a hit and run incident in one jurisdiction, that jurisdiction may, take the jurisdictional prosecution. But we work pretty closely with, Yuba and Sutter, so it's not something that it's not uncommon for us to be in that situation.
Go along with what Wendell says. I would say that the more serious offense was probably going to dictate where the prosecution happens. If there was a car stolen in Sutter County, but the real gravamen of the crime is fleeing and endangering people in Yuba County, then it's probably going to happen in Yuba County. But it can be in either place.
Just have a couple more questions. I don't want to take all the time up, so I figured let somebody else get up here. But anyways, talking about working with other agencies, more and more within fire, and it's actually been like that for years, but as smaller agencies grow, they start to get into other levels within that agency. So my question is, and this is for both of you, what's your feeling on fire departments carrying weapons if they're qualified, such as fire marshal, fire prevention, fire investigators?
I absolutely support it. If you have somebody who has the training and they're able to pass the requirements, I know for a fact that when we had our officer-involved shooting up in the hills, up in Organ House, we had firemen there that were arson investigators that were armed, well armed, and absolutely welcome there. So I have no problem with them being armed, as long as there's the proper training that goes with that.
I'm absolutely for that. I feel that, if you can qualify, if you're eligible to carry, you should be able to carry as fire marshal. The people that's gonna benefit from that is the citizens, the officer, and the fire department, and the firefighter itself. I'm absolutely for that. And once I get elected, we'll definitely look into that and get that started.
Sounds good. Also, at the end of the elections, no matter who wins, I personally don't know what your guys' working relationship is before this, currently, or I'm more, I guess, inquiring about afterwards, no matter who gets elected. Any bad juju going on, anything? I mean, how you guys gonna, you both work for the same agency, obviously. Yeah, some ideas are the same, some are different. You're a lieutenant, you have a subordinate, you're both running.
Absolutely not. I'm I'm not gonna have any issues or anything working with, you know, Mr. Anderson.
I've never had an issue with Mr. Saechao. I don't think we've ever spoken a bad word to each other, so.
So after the election, no matter who wins, shouldn't be any issues. You guys should just go along fluidly.
Still gonna be the same.
Doing,
Yeah, still gonna be the same. To me,
respecting.
I can speak for myself, it's gonna be the same. Nothing's gonna change,
Sounds
whether
good.
win or lose.
That's great. Thank you.
This question is for Mr. Anderson. Last summer, I found out that there was a 1,500 plant grow on forestry property above Brownsville, so I talked to the forestry department, and they have a special officer that investigates that, and he told me he was gonna have to get permission from his department to take care of it. So the day that I got the phone call that he was authorized to go ahead and put cameras out and investigate and whatever else he had to do on this 1,500 plant grow, I found out that our Yuba County Sheriff's Department went up there and eradicated all 1,500 plants and didn't even get pictures of who was doing it. I find that quite upsetting. We're using our resources for this and then not finding out who was responsible for the grow. So can you tell me why we did that?
Well, I don't know about the specific case you're talking about. You know, I oversee the unit, but I have a sergeant who heads up the unit and works up the operational plans. Anytime that we have an opportunity to catch a perpetrator, obviously we want to do that. So I'm not quite sure of the incident that you're talking about. We actually work quite well with the Department of Forestry. We get federal funding from them to eradicate marijuana plants each year. So the specific case you're talking about, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure, but we do have a good working relationship with them. And if there was an opportunity to apprehend someone, I wish, as you do, that we would have taken advantage of it.
Yeah, because apparently you didn't put out cameras or anything, just went out and tore out the plants. So I'm sorry it happened too, because I wanted to catch the people because I think I knew who it was.
Well, it's always a good thing when we can remove the plants, but catching somebody obviously is a bonus for us, especially when it's on federal lands.
Okay.
Okay, one more question, and then I'm gonna take a turn and we'll call it quits for the evening.
With the horrendous happenings in our soft target schools and we're losing our children, I can honestly say that I don't think the Second Amendment should be trumped, even if it was my own grandchildren. I'd have to still support the Second Amendment. But my question is, how do you feel about training and arming the teachers? Because it has to be at ground zero, as they do in Israel. What are your opinions on that?
My opinion on that's going to be, something that's going to be up to the school district. What's their comfort zone in that? If the school district decided to arm the teacher.
But how do you feel about it?
How do I feel about it? I don't work at the school district, so, and again, like I said, that'll be something up to the school district. If I was working at a school district, then I can answer that question, but I don't work at the school district. I don't work for school district. But if they do decide that, I'll if they want to, I will provide the support, make sure that they train, make sure that they are trained to handle their firearms properly, so that we can better protect our children. But that's something that's going to have to be decided by the school district. Again, like I said, I'm not. I don't work the school district. I work. My job is going to be to protect the citizens and protect our children.
So arming teachers and training teachers in school is, I wouldn't say that I'm opposed. It does raise a lot of concerns for me because, you know, as a law enforcement officer responding to an active shooter, heaven forbid that should happen again here, I think the probability of an encounter, a friendly encounter, it just goes up dramatically. I mean, I think the answer to having armed guards in school is having a resource officer in school. I know it's a monetary issue that, you know, it's just not something that we can do for arming our teachers, what qualities are we looking for in teachers now? Are we looking for teaching, or are they better shots? Or, I think the teachers need to be able to teach, and they need to worry about teaching. So, that's not an easy problem to solve. And, I know that there's some things going through our state legislation right now about, putting armed guards, putting armed school resource officers in our schools. I'm not opposed to having armed people in the schools, but I think if you're arming teachers, you're asking for some other problems that come with that.
I agree, but it's going to save more lives.
Okay, your mention of federal lands brought something, and I'm sure these guys would be happy to talk to you after the meeting. But the Constitution explicitly states out how much land the federal government can have and for what purposes. This is to the two sheriffs, but Chris may be involved in something like this. Yuba County more so than Sutter County, but your compatriot John D. Augustini in El Dorado County basically told the feds to go get bent when they started putting chains across the federal, quote unquote, federal lands to restrict access to them. I'd like your assurances that both of you would do the same thing, would follow in his vein and be constitutional sheriffs.
Well, first of all, we, aside from federal lands, we also have state lands that I feel are unlawfully closed, that we don't have access to, and we should. As far as gating off or access to our public federal lands, yeah, absolutely, I would be opposed to that 100%. I think that, it's our land as taxpayers. We have a right to it. I'm an avid outdoorsman, hunting, fishing, it's what I did as growing up as a child, and I think that's a natural resource for us to have. And I would not support any closing of our federal lands whatsoever.
Again, I think, the land, if it belongs to the citizens of Yuba County, everybody should be able to enjoy it. And I'm opposed to anything else other than that. And it's our land, it's Yuba County, belongs to the citizens of Yuba County, then they should be able to enjoy it. I oppose to closing it out.
Okay, and Chris, you got any comment on that, or?
No, I agree. If it's public land, it should be open to the public.
Okay, let's have your 2-minute closings, and we'll let you get home to your families.
Yep.
Yeah, straw poll, you didn't get one, they're back here at Doris's desk, and if you haven't turned it in, please do so.
I guess.
But Chris, go ahead and start.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I said in the beginning, my name is Chris Carlos, and I'm running for DA because I think we need a change. I honestly, firmly believe the direction of the DA's office currently is not good. It's incredibly bad. It's just the decisions going on, the cases going on are just making Sutter County somewhat of a laughing stock. So I want to change the direction of the DA's office. I want to keep the shenanigans out of the newspaper, and I want to prosecute people for the people of Sutter County. So hopefully we can do that on June 5th.
As I walk homes and meet voters, I'm often asked, sometimes jokingly, sometimes seriously, why would I want to take on this job? It's no secret the Yuba County Sheriff's Department is in a financial crisis. Expenses have skyrocketed for health care, workers' comp, ADA issues, and regulatory compliance, while our revenues have not increased accordingly. I take this question seriously and have thought about the consequences of seeking the office of sheriff. The truth is that we in Yuba County do face challenges, as does the balance of the state of California and our nation. If elected as your sheriff, I will work tirelessly to provide the citizens of Yuba County with the protection and service that they deserve. I have shown the dedication and the work ethic throughout my law enforcement career that my opponent cannot match. As evidenced by my endorsements from all local law enforcement, Yuba County supervisors, and the men and women whom I have worked with side by side, I have the relationships and the ability to collaborate to benefit our county. Building relationships with the community leaders and citizens who are like-minded and willing to work side by side with the Sheriff's Department is a key to the success of our county. I have those relationships now and will continue to strengthen them all. I am the candidate who has worked fires and floods from the deputy level as well as the executive level. I have sat in budget meetings, dealt with personnel matters, officer-involved shootings, and have been a part of making tough decisions on all the above. I'm a leader in the department and am the one whom the deputies have followed and will continue to follow as we work to improve and enhance the services that we provide. I have been involved with making our schools safer by conducting drills, site surveys, and preparing our deputies, SWAT members, and first responders for those times of crisis. As I mentioned earlier, I was born and raised here in Yuba County. I made a decision a long time ago to raise my family here as well. I chose to work for the Sheriff's Department and work to make my community, our community, the focus of my law enforcement career. I continue to do so for the duration of my work in life. While I can't make guarantees on much in this life, I can guarantee you that you will get my continued devotion, commitment, and hard work. So why put myself in the hot seat to be the next Yuba County Sheriff? To me, it's simple. This is my home. My life and career and have been and always will be dedicated to the county of Yuba. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy." For me, it's simple. I stand for the people of Yuba County, always. Thank you very much.
You know, I signed the Code of Fair Campaign Practice when I filed my petition to run for Yuba County Sheriff on February 16 of this year. The election office called it the play nice agreement, quote unquote, to play nice. I didn't have to, but I signed it because I want to run a clean campaign. However, some of my supporters have been harassed and some of my signs been vandalized and taken. Someone had been spreading rumors about me, and I'm not sure how to stop them all. You know what I like about rumors? I learned something about me that I didn't know about. That's what I learned about rumors. However, I want to dispel some of the rumors, and I want you to hear from me. I heard that I was retiring. That's what I heard. That's what people said. That's what they said. Absolutely false. I had not signed or submitted my retirement package. Actually, I'm excited to take office in January of next year so we can make the changes together. And I'm looking forward to the next election. I'm start looking at that as well. I also heard that I'm running this campaign for fun. I can tell you this is not fun. Okay, sitting up here, it's not fun. It's absolutely false, okay? It's a lot of work and money. It's very hard balancing my personal life, my full-time job, and the campaign. As a matter of fact, I was not able to attend the Dobbins candidate forum on May 16th because I have to work that night. I couldn't get it off. You know, and I spent a lot of my own money for the campaign. You know, I absolutely want to make the changes. You know, I don't think we have enough time to dispel all the rumors. I think you guys have better things to do than listening to rumors. You know, don't believe everything you hear or read. At the end of the day, it's just a rumor. One-sided story, one-sided report, okay? Here is my number, if you guys can write this down. 530-763-2678. Please give me a call if you hear something that you ask me. I will tell you, I'll sit down and tell you. If it takes 2 hours, I'll sit down 2 hours and tell you. I'll be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Okay, let's give these guys a hand. Thank you for coming tonight.